What is up, everybody? This is Hater Radio. My name is Chris McLean. This is a college football podcast, and today we're going to break down UCLA's 2025 season preview. Um, you know, I've gone through a little bit of like a back and forth with this preview. I did the article. It's on haterradio.com right now, uploaded earlier this morning. While I was going through, and I'm actually glad that I got delayed doing this because there were some things that happened. There was a wide receiver from App State. His name is I can't remember what his name was offhand. Caden Robinson, and he was supposed to come in, but then he just found out yesterday. The judge said that doesn't have any more eligibility. So that was a huge blow, which I found out yesterday. So it was nice to not do this until today to know that for sure. And then also the thing that really is changed my whole paradigm and my view on how things were going to go for UCLA this year. So the thing that changed it was I watched the Big Ten channels or Big Ten networks fall camp preview that they do, and they did UCLA's, I believe, yesterday, and I think that was the first time it was aired, which would have been Monday, August 18th, and just listening to Tino Sunseri talk, and honestly hearing Nico Iamaleava's, I'm not even going to say it another time. That was the only time I'm saying it. I'm just going to say Nico. Hearing Nico's side was very eye-opening for both of them because, one, Nico, seems like a lot is put on him because of what happened at Tennessee. And rightly or wrongly, I don't know. I mean, it's really only between the parties that it happened to that truly know what happened. So we'll probably never really know the exact truth. We'll just hear from both sides, and it's usually biased, and so you don't really get a full picture of what actually happened. But Nico seems to be a level-headed kid. From what I gathered from that interview, he seems pretty happy as well. He's a California kid. I think he went to Warren High. I think that's the name of the school. Let me see. Yeah, Warren High. And so he knows this area very well. And, it's, I don't know. It seems like it should be a good fit. It's Downey. That's where my wife is from. And, but the thing that really pushed me over the edge with being more of an optimist for this UCLA team this year is Tino Sunseri, because I knew some about him. I knew he was coming from Indiana. I knew he was the co-offensive coordinator. I knew their offense was really sound last year, second in the nation in scoring, pretty high up there in yards per game as well. I think 34th. And, I just hearing him talk, I'm like, man, blown away by this guy. He definitely is confident. He's very intelligent. Knows his stuff in and out. He just seems like he's definitely on the trajectory for college coaching, if that is his final goal, which I don't know if it will be, because he grew up where he actually knew Deshaun Foster, head coach Deshaun Foster. They knew each other when Tino was younger, and he was his dad was working for the Carolina Panthers, and so Tino knew him through that, and because he was around the facility a lot, and I guess he was working for something like Ball Boy or something, or was just doing other things at the facilities. And so I feel like he'll be a college coach, but obviously he has that connection to the program. and that affinity for it, which he definitely talked highly of it as he was discussing it on the show. So, I mean, I know I'm recapping the show, but I'm just giving my viewpoint on where I feel like I was at like a 6-6 level with 6-6, 7-5 at best for UCLA, and it was probably around 7-5. But now I feel with the talent that they have with Nico at quarterback makes a huge difference for any college team having a really good quarterback. And I think he is not great, but I think he's a really good college quarterback. He led Tennessee to the playoff and 10 wins last year. And having Sunseri as OC, it's going to be a huge difference. And I feel like this offense is going to click. We'll get into some other things that we'll talk about as well, but those two things are going to be huge there. And I feel like right now I'm trending towards a 9-3 prediction, and we'll get to the season, the schedule later. But so let's break into it. Let's talk about UCLA a little bit. I talked about in my article about how it kind of really set the tone for the year when Deshaun Foster went to Big Ten Media Days and really like laid an egg. And you know what? It's not like that out of the realm of possibility that someone that has never been a head coach on any level would struggle at something as big as that. Like that was kind of a big deal for any kind of coach, let alone someone that had never been a head coach on any level. Like, he's been a coach at UCLA for a while, but to be on that grand stage, I just think he didn't know what he was doing. And it felt kind of maybe a little bit like that was going through most of last year, which, the offense struggled immensely. Eric Bieniemy was the offensive coordinator, 2-time Super Bowl winning offensive coordinator, and they couldn't get anything done. They were averaging like 18.4, something like that, points per game, which was terrible. I think it was only 13 schools in the country average less than 20 points per game. So they were in the bottom barrel of offensive output. They just couldn't get things done. They couldn't score in the red zone. They couldn't put many drives together. God bless the quarterback. Garbers, did his best he could. There was no run game, though. The offensive line struggled to get a push, and the injuries kind of hit them in the running back room as well. So they struggled there. I'm telling you, though, Sunseri, it looks like it's going to be the difference maker here. They bring in Nico. Nico threw for over 2,600 yards, 19 TDs, and 5 interceptions, which is a pretty good ratio for a guy in his first season as a starter and his first season as a starter in the SEC. Had a completion percentage of 63.8, at an additional 358 yards on the ground and 3 TDs as well. He's 6'6". Just the kid has all the intangibles. He can run. He's super athletic. He's got a nice arm on him. This is worlds away from what UCLA has had in the last several years. I love DTR, and probably the only guy that has been even close to this was Huntley like many years ago. And that was like over 10 years ago. And so, I think this is a new beginning for UCLA here. I don't think I even realized how much of a difference that they made in this offseason until I still really started researching this. For the most part, when I do this, I cut off once the offseason starts. So like after the championship game, we do that last show. I'll do like a wrap up, like video to like show what went on during the year. But like besides that, I hardly really do anything is with college football. I'm looking on Twitter, because I've got control of the Twitter account, but like, I don't do anything really like as far as research or anything. I'm not like delving deep in anything. I may watch some spring stuff, and that's about it. I don't know. I don't really follow it that well. Like someone had asked me, like someone I'm a friend with, like 2-3 months ago about like the quarterback situation. I think I had mentioned, UCLA struggling with that. And then he said something about, oh yeah, the new guy coming in. I was like, who's the new guy? Like, I didn't even remember because I'm like in the off season, I just kind of like shut everything off. But, now it's like getting into it here and, last couple of weeks, really ramping up and, diving deep into all these teams, especially the 4 teams we cover. And, we're going to dive deeper into the season preview for the national scope on tomorrow's show, which will air live 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific on YouTube and other formats as well. So check that out for tomorrow on Wednesday. But no, I try to avoid this stuff. But like, once I'm diving deep into this and figuring out what's going on, it was like, oh, wow, man. Like I knew Nico was good, but like, and it's not even just that. It's like, yes, Nico is going to be pretty good this year, but I really feel like adding Tino Sunseri is a huge step in the right direction, considering that last year they brought in Bieniemy because they really were kind of, didn't have any other option at that point. Deshaun Foster came in late, and so he needed to hire someone, and it just happened to be Bieniemy. And credit to Bieniemy for taking up the task, but it just didn't work out. And now Sunseri, I'm telling you, and I know I keep talking about him, but it's like you look at what he did at Indiana, and they were on the verge of really doing some big things. They played Notre Dame really tough in that playoff game, and if they win that one, who knows what could have happened. I mean, they would have had to have played Georgia, which I don't know if they would have beat them. But it also, Rourke, the quarterback for Indiana, had his thumb hurt. So maybe if he was healthy, maybe that team does a lot better, and maybe they actually go the distance in the CFP, go 2 or 3 wins, who knows? But no, the offense was great last year for Indiana. I've been a huge fan of Cignetti's, and Sunseri was with him for a long time. So, he's really risen up the ranks, and, it sets a stage for something, where UCLA last year, they lost a ton of close games, and, they went 5-7. And, if they had just been a little bit better on offense last year, they probably could have won like 8 or 9 games because the defense was sound. It wasn't great, but it was sound enough to get them, close to double-digit wins. And, considering that the offense was so bad, it just needed to be average. And now with Sunseri, it hopefully could be better than average, maybe even good to great, which is, it sets a stage for a lot of things for this team. And I know the UCLA faithful are going to be very excited about this year. I didn't realize until really the last couple of days that I did my deep dive of how much this team is going to actually make a difference here in this year. And we'll talk about the schedule in a little bit. Let's break down a little bit more of the rest of the team. We were talking about running backs. They bring back Jalen Berger. He had some injuries last year, so he's looking to break out. Also, they brought in Anthony Woods from Idaho. He's averaging 5.6 yards per carry while he was there. And then Javian Jet Thomas, he primarily goes by Jet. He was averaging 6.3 per carry and had more total yards than Ott at Cal last year. So look out for him. Freshman Carson Cox will fill out the rotation. As far as the offensive line, there's a ton of transfers coming in that are vying for playing time and the starting positions. So I think like the only guy that is coming back that was on the roster before was Garrett DiGiorgio at right tackle. One of the things that I noted that I saw out there before I did my article was Mike Regaldo from Bruin Report. Shout out to him. He tweeted out that UCLA, the average weight of the offensive line was roughly around 300 pounds for the last 3 years. The guys this year, it's 316.9 is the average. So 15 to 17 more pounds up compared to the last couple of years. So they're looking to push people around, which I think they will be, because Sunseri wants to predicate a lot of his offense on the run. And Nico is a capable runner. The running game has some pieces, Jet, like I said, Berger, and even Wood. So like that's the 3 capable backs right there that really should make a difference there. Receiving core, they lost 4 of their top 5 producers. J. Michael Sturtevant went to Florida. Hopefully he does well out there. Malika Matavio, Logan Loya, those guys are all gone. But coming back is Quasi Gilmer and Micaiah Altilamala. They both of them combined for 60 catches, over 600 yards, and 3 TDs. So decent production out of the 2 of them. Hopefully, it'll be a lot bigger, more robust this year coming into 2024 or 2025. Sorry. They have some transfers coming in as well. I talked about Caden Robinson, so that's a shame there. So we won't be able to see him. Tight ends, Jack Peterson and Hudson Habamel come back. Defensively, now this is the key. Last 5 years, Bruins have been like a revolving door of defensive coordinators. This time around, they're bringing back Ike Kamali as the coordinator. Like I said, it wasn't, like they were in 23. Last year, they averaged about 25.3 points per game and gave up 341 yards per game. So it was good enough to be competitive against some of the teams in the Big Ten. Like I said, if they had been a better offense, if they averaged like 26, 27 points per game, they probably would have won a good portion of those games and had a better record, but they struggled offensively. But that will help with the offense doing better here. That should help the defense as well, keep them rested, keep them ready to go. So we'll see. Those 3 and outs last year were not good. That really kind of tired out the defense because they were constantly out there. So along the defensive line, they got incoming transfers again. Seems to be the key here. I think I saw something like 50 newcomers between the portal and between the freshmen, which is a huge number of people coming in. As far as on the defensive line transfers, Nico DeVilliers from Arkansas, Gary Smith from Duke, and Anthony Jones from Indiana. Defensive tackle Sai Tapaki, he returns. Last year, they only had 22 sacks, so they need a better output there. The year before in 23, I believe the sack output was 43. So it was like 21 differential between the 2 years. So D-line going to rely on a lot of transfers. So, but that seems to be the key with most of this team. There's a lot of transfers coming in. Linebacking core, Carson Schlesinger is gone. They'll need to rely on transfer Ben Perry. And then also John Vaughns at middle linebacker and Jalen Woods at weak side. So those three, look for them to really stand out there. Secondary, it is a ton of transfers. Key Lawrence, Ole Miss. Byron Threats, he was originally at UCF and then Cincinnati. There's a lot going on there as far as transfers. I'm telling you though, man, this team is a collective. I know the transfers. I think the defense will be fine. I think they'll be able to find their footing there. They've revamped some things. The recruiting might have fell off with Chip Kelly there at the end. So they're going to struggle to really fill those holes, but you use the transfer portal to help out. As far as the schedule goes, God, I'm always like this here. I don't know. I can't figure this out yet. Okay, so the first game, that Utah game, August 30th, which is right now 12 days away. No, 11 days away. That honestly will probably be an arbinger for how the rest of the season goes. And you could say that about any first game for anybody throughout college football. But I think because this team, is looking to turn the corner and really make something of themselves, a big win over a potential, as of right now, top tier Big 12 team would be huge. Kyle Whittingham's looking to close out his career with a really good season. They brought in the offensive coordinator from New Mexico and brought their quarterback as well, Devin Dampier. So, Utah should have a better offense. Last couple of years have been kind of sputtering. They relied on Cam Rising too much, and he just was hurt for several years. He's finally gone. Ridiculous how long he was in college football. But Dampier comes in. He, puts up a ton of yards. He can run the ball. He's a dual threat. He put up close to 4,000 yards total. It'll be a true test because if the defense can keep them in it, I think UCLA can score enough to win this game. And, that means scoring 28. And I think if they hold Utah to 24, that right there, that's exactly what I was talking about with those averages. That's exactly what they need to be winning games by, which they weren't winning last year. They're only scoring 17, 14 points a game. So I think UCLA can win this game. I think UCLA should beat UNLV. They should beat New Mexico. They should beat Northwestern. So right there, if they start off 4-0 heading into Penn State, coming to UCLA at the Rose Bowl, I don't think they're going to win that game. So that's 4-1. Michigan State, they'd be 5-1. Maryland, they should probably win that at 6-1. Indiana, I think Indiana's got too much. I think that would be 6-2. Nebraska, I don't know. This is kind of a close one. Rayola, I don't know. I don't know what to think. I know Dana Holgerson is there from previous stops at Houston and West Virginia, now the OC with Nebraska. I don't know. That's a tough one. I think it's a huge one for UCLA to get because the last three are really tough. Ohio State on the road, Washington, and then USC at the Coliseum. So I don't think they're going to beat Ohio State. It's close against Washington, and it's going to be tough against USC. So right now, I have them at least 2 losses. I think they can beat Nebraska, and then it comes down to those last 2. And I think if they go 1-1 in those 2, then they'll go 9-3, and that's what I have. I have them at 9-3 right now, and I know, coming into this, like I said, I had them at 7-5, maybe 6-6. I was leaning more towards 7-5, but because of how I feel about Tino Sunseri and how I feel about Nico, it really, I think the offense is going to score a lot of points. I think they're going to be able to really turn things around. Offensive line is looking beefier. The run game should be there. As far as wide receivers, it's going to be relying on transfers. So we'll see. Outside of Quasi Gilmer, which I think he's going to get the most burn this year, which he is probably the most talented guy on the team. But defensively, like I said, if they just steady and do what they did last year and maybe even a little bit better, a little bit more improvement, because some of these guys are second year in the system, I think UCLA really, really can, match what I'm saying as record wise. And that would be ridiculous. To go from last year where they looked so inept to this year being like essentially turning themselves into Indiana, I really think it's possible. I don't think it's going to be as good because they have a harder schedule than Indiana had last year. But I still feel like UCLA is capable of winning most of these games outside of really Ohio State, Penn State, and maybe USC. I think those three games and Indiana, like those 3 or 4 games are really going to be their struggle. I don't think they're going to win those games, but I think the rest of those they have a really good shot at, and it really is possible. And I know I may sound ridiculous on this at 9-3, but I just have become a believer in just the last 2 days, researching Tino Sunseri and seeing what he's done and what he's capable of. So that's all I have. That is the show. This is our last of the 4 of the preview shows we did. So check out all those. We got USF in Tampa, Florida Gators, USC, and UCLA. We did all 4 of those, this one including in the UCLA, obviously. So check out those 4. Check out haterradio.com for our season preview articles on all 4 of those teams. Look for more articles coming up throughout the year. We're going to have one on USF. And then tomorrow is our first official show for the year, like our regular show. So I'm excited. Me and Ian are going to break down week 0, and we're going to talk about our other things going on as far as like CFP teams, sleepers, and Heisman potential teams, potential players. Sorry, and I'm excited. This is going to be a great year. We've been pushing forward with this stuff. This is just the beginning for Hater Radio. We're excited for the potential for all this. So look for us on all the socials. Just Hater Radio. You'll find us right there very easily. That's the show, and I'll talk to you guys later.